Greetings, everybody. This is Courtney Starhart, and I'm pleased to be here today to talk with you about a matter that weighs heavily on my heart and my mind and has really affected the ayahuasca community at large. For many years, our church has known, because of receiving the victims of these tragedies at other retreats, we've known that there was a lot of dark stuff going on. Women and men claiming to have been assaulted at retreats, people not getting the type of attention they need, not getting the support they need. A churn and burn type of attitude about plant medicine can always lead to no good. So, what happened? First of all, a young man officially died at SoulQuest. So, he died of hyponatremia, and he should have had medical attention immediately as soon as they saw that he was in distress. Around here, especially after sweat lodge, what happens is people will drink too much water, and sometimes they'll start to get the early onset symptoms of hyponatremia. So we always keep a little bit of salt around that they can take under their tongues and start getting some more minerals in solution, right? Because hyponatremia is a situation where you have too much water. We also practice the compassionate method of combo, which means that we're not drinking liters of water. Also, we do combo before ayahuasca so that people's bodies have the opportunity to actually reset. So, after having watched for years of people putting 50, 100 people into a room with no one who has any authorization to be running these ceremonies, um, it's not shocking that this happened, but it is saddening. Okay. My heart goes out to the family, it goes out to the mother and father. As a parent myself, I cannot imagine losing my child to such a ridiculously irresponsible situation. For all of those people who thought of SoulQuest as a church and got a lot of healing there, my heart goes out to you too, because I know it must feel terrible for that place to have shut down. But hopefully, it opens the doors to a new era where we can all be safer and more sacred in our use of plant medicine. So let's talk about safe and sacred spaces. All right. I truly believe that more than 10 people in a room at a time with ayahuasca is asking for trouble. We usually work with 5 to 7 people at a time, and there's a specific training course. So if you're looking for an ayahuasca retreat or you're looking for this healing, then understand it's not like a 7-Eleven item. It's not like a churn and burn thing or like, hey, can I get a hookup? Can I get a special? I want to go trip. I want the magic wand. No, there's a lot of work for the people participating in ceremony, as well as for the ceremonial leaders. It's not an easy journey, and it's certainly not one to be taken lightly. So, you want to find a retreat where they respect the tradition. They have an indigenous tradition. They're authorized. They are an herbalist, at least a master herbalist. If you don't know how to grow spinach, how do you know how to work with a master plant medicine like ayahuasca? So, in the native world, it's an absolute requirement to be an herbalist and a permaculturist before you start working with plant medicines. You also want to find someone who's been practicing for 5 to 10 years. You don't want a newbie who's 20 years old running ceremony because they just don't have the time and rank to be able to handle themselves. So, you also don't want a retreat that's too cheap because that means that they're probably going to be putting a lot of people in that room, whether they admit to it or not. You want to find a place that has training. That's part of the indigenous tradition is we lean heavily into the preparation and the prevention of problems rather than the cure, right? Um, we think a lot about people's well-being and we put the community before ourselves, oftentimes to our detriment. So during the last 5 to 10 years, I have to say that the plant medicine world has changed substantially. As a traditional Native American trained practitioner, I not only am genetically Native in half of my family and come from those tribes back in the day, I also had the training of a master who had an uninterrupted oral tradition. All right. So, what does that mean about oral tradition? You see, Native Americans didn't write things down like Europeans. They say that they had been involved in these cataclysmic global events and that they were the remnants of this lost society, this great society that relied heavily on the four keys of power. So, when you go into our ceremonial lodges in the Southwest, you'll see that they're always orientated in a specific way, whether that's at Chaco Canyon or that's our Kiva in Albuquerque. You're going to see that it opens to the east. So we have this fixation on the four keys because the carbon molecule makes up this entire third dimension. So, what's the carbon molecule look like? Funny you ask. It looks like the four keys, all right? It looks like the four directions, the four elements. So, north for us is air, south is earth, east is fire, and west is water. They're also compartments and different aspects of our consciousness. Our vision is one thing. The purpose that Spirit sent us here with that made us want to endure the difficulties of being human, right? Then you have the south, which is earth. That's your physical body. You have the west, which is water. That is your emotional component. And you have to be able to go into that void, into that inner world in order to identify the things that you need to change, right? So you have vision, vehicle, void, and then vortex. That element of the north, when we put all four elements together, another thing pops open, which we call the force. So that is just a little snippet of the training package that we offer. And the oral tradition that goes along with plant medicine is crucial because when something happens, and it always does, something new and different and novel will come up during retreat. And I'll be on the phone with my elder within 30 seconds flat. Hey, have you ever heard of this happening? So if I don't have a way to deal with it myself, I will call my elder, right? It's like being able to tap into 10,000 years of indigenous wisdom as well, because the Pueblos were like the UN of the Southwest. Then there were all these communications between different indigenous peoples. And in that great legacy, Patricio and some of his comrades got together and they made these councils, and you were able to sit by the fire with people from all over the world who carried their uninterrupted oral traditions and histories. Now, when they all started swapping notes and I was there carrying bags for my elder, this is 20 years ago now, I was able to meet people from all of these indigenous traditions. Patricio himself, after having been a medicine man in his own right, then studied with a Taita from Colombia, Taita Paulinho, and brought him to Albuquerque for many, many years to teach our community about how to work with this sacred medicine. I would like to say also that every tradition is different. No two ayahuasca traditions are alike. No two combo traditions are alike. No two peyote traditions were ever alike. Now, in the hustle and bustle and the haste to produce these cash generating operations, it seems that people think that there's only one way. Oh, the way that it's done at Rhythmia must be the only way. No, okay? There are many distinct tribal cultures, and each one is beautiful like a jewel, and each one deserves to be honored. So, all I'm saying is find yourself a good Indigenous practitioner. One more thing that's interesting, I want to talk about the legalities of plant medicine and a little bit about Chacruna's best practices. I had the opportunity to read again the best practices manual from Chacruna, which was written by a female attorney who's very, very busy helping people to make churches. Um, the last time that we saw the government give us an exemption was way back in this case when the UDV had their medicine seized in Santa Fe. I later actually had an office in the same space where this entire case was begun in Santa Fe. Right here, you can see the judge who made the landmark decision about this particular church. Essentially, the decision said that the place needs to be safe. Okay, so as long as no one's getting hurt, our religious rights trump the government's restrictions on that substance. Okay. The next thing was that the medicine didn't need to leak out onto the streets in the form of a drug and that it should be kept in a safe space. The other thing was that there should be a spiritual and sacred ceremony and a religious tradition involved with it. So during this case, they brought in elders from the Amazon and they had them testify about their particular tradition. In the União de Vegetal, they brought in the elders. They showed that this was a religious practice and that it was authentic. They were also lucky because who was arrested? The heir to the Seagram's legacy, multi-million dollar family, to say the least, right? So as he was taken away, I always joke, I'm sure he was smiling inside to know that he had plenty of money to defend himself. So when Indigenous practitioners are taken away, then we often don't have the money to defend ourselves. We don't have the money in the beginning to even hire a lawyer. Okay. When lawyers cost $500 to $1,000 an hour, and when a simple contract is going to cost you $1,200 to $2,000, when the retainer is $4,000, how is it that we're supposed to go about hiring legal counsel as Indigenous practitioners? We're taught that it's not supposed to be about money. We're taught that it's not supposed to be about ego. But the only people who've succeeded in this modern game have been people who are just about money and thoroughly about ego. So it kind of blows my mind that it required someone's son dying before we're all going to actually start looking at this and saying that we need to change the way we're doing things. There has to be some kind of board, some kind of council, some kind of supervision that allows us to see who is authentic, who is safe. And I'm telling you right now that the things online, like safe ceremonies, are a complete joke. When I went to do a ceremony for another group where they were hog tying people, where they were putting extra things in their medicine, when Homeland Security showed up there and all of that, this guy completely got off the hook because he had the money for legal counsel. It's mind blowing. So, Eagle Condor may be actually opening things up because someone was given an exemption. All right. So now that that whole line of communication has been opened up between us and the DEA, it's possible that if I have 20, 30, 40, $50,000 laying around, that I could get a lawyer and I could make an application to the DEA and they might actually answer. Patricio and I, as Indigenous practitioners, have been requesting for years that the DEA answer us in our attempt to be transparent and above board and get legal recognition as Indigenous practitioners with plant medicine. So, are we in a new era? Is it going to get safer? I think of it a little bit like prohibition. This is going to be my last point before we wrap up. Did prohibition make alcohol safer, or did it make it more dangerous? Did prohibition and government regulation and the DEA's refusal to answer any of us regular practitioners, did it make it safer or not to work with ayahuasca? I believe that prohibition made things more dangerous with alcohol and created an entire criminal mafia type of element, right? And this is exactly what we saw happening at SoulQuest. This kind of mafia like system, this kind of criminal attitude about ego and power and domination is what emerged from the government's taking control of our plant medicine and putting the DEA in charge of the importation. There's a lot more to this, folks, that we can talk about. But my prayer is that things get safer and that things get better as we're taking the criminalization off of psychedelic substances, especially when it's being used in religious practice. So if you want to be safe, look for an Indigenous practitioner, look for a small group, ask them if they're an herbalist, ask them who their teacher was and how long they've been practicing, ask how many people are going to be in the room, and ask what type of preparation and support you're going to get. On average, a retreat, an authentic, legitimate retreat, is going to cost you $7,000 to $10,000. If you're looking to get it cheap, if you're looking to get it quick, if you're looking to get a magic wand, it's not going to serve you. So it's not going to be safe either, and you're really taking your life into your own hands. Remember, working with plant medicine at a high level is a little bit like neurosurgery. You're going to rearrange your neurological systems. You're going to rearrange your connection to the force. You're going to departiculate into the void, into the spirit world. And when you come back, and while you're gone, you want to know that you're safe. All right. So this is Courtney Starhart, and I'd like to invite you to get in touch with me if you'd like to have a call. You can find us at Church of the Natural Law, and I look forward to speaking with you.